It was particularly gross, and especially Zuckerberg, who tried to explain himself, looked like a real toady in a room full of toadies.
I thought they made sex work look dignified.
Hi, everyone. This is Pivot from New York Magazine and the Vox Media Podcast Network. I'm Kara Swisher.
And I'm Scott Galloway.
Well, hello, Scott. Do you have your shirt on today?
You know, why not? Why not?
That people seem to like that quite a bit. And then some people didn't. But a lot of people did, more than they think they're used to at this point.
I think it's quite polarizing.
Is it?
I think it gives people hope. When they're 80, they can look 79.
We've got a lot to get to today, including Trump's dinner with the tech bros and Tesla offering Elon a massive new pay package. But first, Trump is rebranding the Department of Defense as the Department of War, restoring a name last used in the 1940s. Let's listen to him explain the rebrand in the Oval Office last week.
So we won the First World War, we won the Second World War, we won everything before that and in between, and then we decided to go woke and we changed the name to Department of Defense. So we're going Department of War.
That's fucking ridiculous. But Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, as we're now being asked to call him, which I refuse, took it further. Let's listen.
We're going to go on offense, not just on defense. Maximum lethality, not tepid legality. Violent effect, not politically correct. We're going to raise up warriors, not just defenders.
Oh, my God. I don't even know what to say. He is such a small penis. All right. I'll note now the Department of War is just a secondary title for the Defense Department. Official name change would require an act of Congress. And while Trump is downplaying the price tag, if his name change, reports suggest it could rebrand, could cost billions, just even changing like all the logos and stuff like that. I'd love to get your thoughts on this. And then over the weekend, Trump posted a very controversial thing. Chicago's about to find out why it's called the Department of War. So he's always using a name that was incredibly violent to a U.S. city. It's done nothing to him. This idea of maximum lethality, violent effect, offense, not defense, going woke. I mean, the whole thing is just insane, I think. But I don't know. What do you think from a branding perspective?
Well, it's just not accurate. First off, they're trying to solve a problem that doesn't need solving. The U.S. Defense Department there is no one more lethal than the United States Marine SEALs, Special Ops, CIA. I mean, we can deliver more lethality anywhere in the world than any entity in history. So the notion somehow that it needs some sort of rebranding to give this performative, masculine weirdness, or that's not masculinity, that's little dick weirdness. And unfortunately, this attempt to create some sort of illusion of macho-ness is making us less safe, because one of the things they're doing is saying to transgender people who have served our nation proudly and competently, we're just going to kick you out in some attempt to show that we're tough. It's also not accurate. We changed the name for a reason, and that is conquest was, in fact, a way you developed economic security and prosperity back in the 15th, 16th, 17th century and before that. When the nation's largest powers developed the bomb, it was clear that trying to invade Russia or Russia trying to invade a democratic nation could result in nuclear Armageddon. So we reconfigured our policies around the military, and we accurately and justifiably changed the name to defense. And modern warfare, the reality of modern warfare is the following. It's about cyber and space domains. It's about information warfare. It's about economic sanctions, and it's about diplomacy and
trade.
Also, a really good Defense Department is about deterrent. And that is, when Hamas tries to inspire a five-front war by going in and butchering people in Israel, and Biden deploys 2 carrier strike forces, he's there to tell the Iranian proxies to sit the fuck down, not to invade Iran.
No.
NATO, which is arguably the largest military force in the world outside of the U.S., is there to keep in check the Soviet sphere. We're not planning to invade Russia. So defense is the right term. And even on practical levels, it hurts us because our Defense Department does a lot of recruiting at NYU. The CIA is a big recruiter. The NSA is a big recruiter. The armed services are a big recruiter. And Do you think more people are inclined to consider going to work for the Defense Department or the Department of War?
The War Department.
And
It's
when you show up
insane.
with representatives trying to strike a deal or negotiate, just saying, "Hi, I'm here from the Department of War," it reflects this aggressive faux macho culture where he's threatening to take over Canada and Greenland. And it further alienates our enemies and convinces them they have a need to bind together and form a unified force against us.
Right. So here's the thing. First of all, let's keep in mind that Donald Trump has never served in the military and got out because of bone spurs. Let's never forget that.
That's right.
And this idea that we decided to go woke, we didn't win the Second World War. We were brought into these wars and actually settled them is what we did. We didn't go on offensive for these wars. And then Pete Hegseth is such small dick energy. He can't, by the way, speaking of not being able to do a pull up, he barely could do one.
That's unfair.
Not unfair.
Just to be clear.
Not unfair.
It was a challenge. No. You're referring to a challenge,
yes,
which I'm going to
Kennedy.
do, where it's
Right.
100 push-ups and 50 pull-ups, and that was his 50th, which was terrible form. But Pete's Secretary Hegseth is actually in great shape. So is RFK Jr.
Absolutely.
And by the way, I'm going to do the same thing, and
Are
I'm
you?
going to kick both their asses.
Oh, okay, good. But I'm just saying this, performative masculinity is so strange, and this is the idea. This is what teenage, very badly raised teenage boys think of as manliness. You're right. You've written a whole book on this. We're not going to raise up warriors, not just defenders. They are warriors. They just happen to defend. Violent, the word violent, lethality. It's just, I don't even understand it. It's so weird and fucked up. I mean, this is such a bad message to young men. That's the other part.
Real men who are in great shape and have the ability to deploy violence should they need, they're the ones that break up fights in bars. They don't start them.
Correct.
They're the ones that don't shitpost their country. They compliment it and defend it. They're the ones that their first instinct is towards protection. It's towards defense. It's not going on offense to try. We live in a world where no one nation has the power to take over the world. And the notion that, what are we going to name? We're going to change the name of the Coast Guard to Coast Attack.
Right.
I mean, it's just, this is unnecessarily performative. It sends entirely the wrong signal. It's going to make recruiting harder. It's a bureaucratic nightmare for all, just from stationery to treaties that say Department of Defense. It doesn't reflect, the most violent nations in the world, whether it's Russia or North Korea, they call it defense because they want to say, no, we're here to defend. The U.S. is about defending its interests overseas, and when it needs to, it can go on offense like no other entity in history. There's no one is saying, oh, those Americans are so gentle. We've had so many military incursions. We have killed so many people. And the notion that changing the name where we are screwing up is this faux macho.
Yeah. I thought it
is
died
limiting,
in the 80s. I thought this faux macho thing died.
It's limiting the talent pool. You need super thoughtful people who believe in our nation and believe in our defense. And also, I do believe there are a lot of people out there that want to kill us. I believe in going on the offense militarily. I just do. And if we don't, then let's take our military budget down to $200 or $300 billion because we'd use the money and Canada's not about to invade us. So I'm all for an offensive strategy, but it's there to protect our interests, defend our allies. It's not there to conquer nations.
Yeah, I think we'll go get something.
Yeah, that shit's over. That era's over. We're not going to decide, okay, I mean, you could argue, and I would argue that there's a strategic interest in displacing Maduro and then having a very strong alliance with Guyana because of that light sweet crude they have. I get that, but that's going to be done through diplomacy, maybe some covert operations, but it's about information warfare, economic sanctions, deterrence,
all kinds
Department of War.
Same thing with J.D. Vance and we'll just bomb whoever we want without proof of anything was insane. I'm so sorry, J.D., your mother was a drug addict, but you really have to stop. It's really, it's so extrajudicial. It's so Duterte. It's so not American, all this stuff. It's so un-American, but it's just me. I mean, they're all
just to correct the record, I realize, by the way, I think Hillbilly Elegy was a brilliant book. I think he's a fantastic writer. I think he's a very intelligent man. But also, let's just clarify a little bit about J.D. Vance's Appalachian upbringing. This was a guy taking golf lessons in high school who tried out for the varsity golf team. I mean, he's definitely rebranded himself a little bit more country. He's definitely gone a little bit more Marie of Donnie and Marie in terms of his upbringing.
I know, I agree. But I'm just saying, this is all such small dick energy. And then with all we'll get to that in a minute. They're all fighting with each other, talking about throwing hands. All these, it's ridiculous. They're ridiculous.
Supposedly Besant is getting in fist fights. Or
with the guy, and the guy he was yelling at is an
people.
asshole, punchable face, no question. Pulte, and same thing with Elon. But still, it's such blech. It's such blech. Anyway, let's move on. Speaking of people who are throwing weight around, the U.S. tech companies gained a combined $420 billion in market cap last week. The gains lifted their total value to $21 trillion, making them the third of the S&P 500. You have referenced this many times. Well, one cause of the jump was Google's antitrust win in the U.S. The company is facing a new $3.45 billion fine in the EU for anti-competitive practices. Not off the hook. President Trump threatened the EU with investigation that could lead to higher tariffs over the fine. Whatever. Any prediction here for what the rest of the year? You know, you did pick Google, as you noted, but this is a lot. This is like a little too much of the S&P when we should, as you said last week, focused on the other 400 companies, not these 7 companies, right?
Everything from the tariffs to what's going on with this new AI bill that basically gives them free rein is essentially a transfer of wealth from the 490 traditional or more traditional companies in the S&P to the Magnificent 10. And I had dinner with a friend of mine who works at Apollo, and he said something just fascinating. He said that to justify the current valuations of the AI-centered companies, specifically in the Magnificent 10, it implies that they're going to be able to find an incremental $1 trillion in revenues or efficiencies from their clients, right? What that means is, okay, if we buy more NVIDIA chip and have enterprise licenses with Anthropic or OpenAI, we'll be able to cut $1 trillion of the cost. So far, I would argue the vast majority is coming from efficiencies, which is Latin for cutting your legal expenses. I talked to a Fortune 500 company CEO last week. He thinks that this year they're going to reduce their legal expenses by 1/3 and next year by another 1/3.
Yeah.
Right? So one of two things is going to happen. If you think about $1 trillion in quote unquote savings, right? And there are 150 million Americans who work. It's only 150 million. And assume half that industry is immune somewhat from AI. Chiropractors, plumbers, masseuses, whoever it is, right? Hairdressers, they're somewhat immune from AI. Let's assume that half the market, and that's probably generous, is susceptible to these quote-unquote efficiencies or cost cuts in AI, which is Latin for you need less lawyers, consultants, whoever, right? It's just a huge destruction. Producers, the 192 people that are about to be laid off from the Colbert Show as he takes 6 to a podcast. If you assume a load factor and salary of 100,000, $1 trillion is 10 million jobs. 10 million jobs from a universe of 75 million is about a 15% destruction in employment. A 15% destruction in employment in any industry over the next 24 to 36 months is literally Armageddon. That may not sound like a lot, but that means that industry is in a state of chaos. So one of two things is going to happen. Either these companies' valuations are going to get cut in half, or we're going to have massive employment destruction across a small number of industries. Now, someone would say, Scott, there's a door 3 and that it creates incremental opportunities and incremental revenue.
I always say that.
I don't see any companies saying, oh, we're putting out a new car because of AI that's making us more money. I don't see L'Oreal going, we've launched new moisturizers using AI and it's created new markets for us. What you're seeing is big companies are saying, we're going to starch out a lot of costs with AI. So which is it? Either these companies are going to get cut in half or we're going to see a massive, and maybe that's capitalism. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, or we're going to see a massive destruction and reduction in costs in the means of production, which is Latin for massive layoffs in certain
I actually
industries.
do say it's a bad thing because those are consumers who don't spend, right? Those are
Fair point.
It's a problematic situation if people feel, look, every tech person, anytime you say, they're always like, every tech change has created more wealth. Okay, let's see that. What is it? Explain to us.
Well, it's shareholder wealth right now.
It's shareholder wealth. That's correct. It's stock wealth. And so the question is, like, you remember I'm not going to say who it was. Scott and I had sort of drinks with someone, and he was saying, remember he said he was going to cut his software people from 6,000 to 2,000 or some number like that. It was some massive number. That was about a year ago, like noticing efficiencies. But again, it didn't make a better product or a new product or move into new areas. It was only just cutting people. That really.
Well, I'll do the straw man. So the average in 1995, the average profit margin of the S&P 500 was about 5%. Today, it's roughly 11%. So the average profits have more than doubled. That should imply that they, in fact, have more money, and the bar for greenlighting new products, new ideas, new factories has been lowered, and they are making massive CapEx investments. If you are good with your hands and comfortable in a construction site and are willing to go 12 or 24 months and get a degree in like specialty construction as it relates to nuclear power plants, you can probably make $150,000 by the time you're 23 or 25. So there is going to be new jobs, new creation. I don't think you get in the way of this destruction. Now, unfortunately, a lot of that additional margin is going to profits that companies like Apple are spending on share buybacks, or
That's
110 billion.
Or
Apple
dividends.
spent more on share buybacks last year. I believe it was $110 billion. It's rivaling their R&D. So what does that do? It takes the existing share price up. But you could argue it's not really going back into the economy. It's going into the pockets of the 10% that own 90% of the stocks. So there is growth. It does result in economic growth and should result in new industries with higher paying jobs. And I don't think you can get in the way of it. But what we're really bad at here, we're really good at figuring out ways to lay off people and force them to find industries where there's growth and create more profit and more margin. What we're really bad at is figuring out systemic training and means to help give those people the runway such that what happens is, did you see all these farmers complaining?
Yeah.
About,
And
no one has. It's like the world's tiniest violins. 2/3 of farmers voted for Trump, and now they're all fucking freaked out that
we voted for racism, but not this.
Yeah, but they're all freaked out that, in fact, and they're all asking for a bailout. And these were the same people that were just horrified by a student loan bailout, right? I agree. We should have capitalism. Companies should go out of business. If we have technology that puts, Colbert's team out of work, or mediocre lawyers out of work, or mediocre consultants, I'm all for it. But what you need to do is tax these organizations such that you have the capital to retrain people and not have people live in a state of fear and not worry about not having health insurance if they're one of those consultants or bankers or whoever it is that gets laid off. That's what we're really bad at. But
can I just point out, you put up something about taxing the rich. I thought was interesting, your statistics about how we've moved from 90% to like 28%.
Well, we'll talk about that when we talk about Elon.
Right,
but our taxes on corporations are the lowest they've been since 1939. And with these deficits, it's pretty easy, folks. We got to do one of two things. We either got to spend less money or we got to tax people more. Otherwise, our kids are just not going to have the benefit of the investments in public infrastructure and technology and education that we've enjoyed.
Yep, absolutely. Anyway, we'll see what happens, but these tech companies will still lead the way. And when we get back, we'll find out why. We'll go on a quick break. When we come back, Trump's big tech dinner party. Scott, we're back. President Trump hosted a big dinner party at the White House last week with attendees including Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, and Sam Altman. All of them were there. Tim Cook was there, Sergey Brin, Satya Nadella, everybody was there. One notable figure was missing, Elon Musk. Musk says he was invited but couldn't make it, but other people say he wasn't invited. I don't care. The guests were full of praise for the president. It was pretty grotesque to watch. Bill Gates thanked him for, quote, setting the tone such that we could make a major investment in the U.S. I think Bill Gates is doing it so he can save USAID. I'm okay with him. I'm going to give him the only out. The rest of it was they will live to regret what they're doing here, I think. Or maybe they won't. I mean, this short-term gains, I think this was so grotesque, and it reminded me of that story I broke in 2016 when they went up the Trump Tower and did the exact same thing because it was in their interests. They're not going to grow a backbone any bun. They're going to keep up this shtick. It's good for their business. It was particularly gross, and especially Zuckerberg, who tried to explain himself, looked like a real toady in a room full of toadies. Any thoughts on this?
I thought they made sex work look dignified. I mean, I think paying some guy $50 to suck my cock is more dignified than what these guys did.
What do you really think, Scott?
What is the point of aggregating all these skills?
I know.
These guys work so hard. They're so talented. They rally hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. They build these amazing products so they can become billionaires, so they can go and fellate
I know. I was thinking
an
that.
insurrectionist.
What
I mean,
in the fuck? And they all complained about the insurrection.
I understand the notion of staying below the radar. Don't antagonize him. Don't say anything.
Right.
Just stay out of his way. I get it. I'm having lunch with the chancellor of a iconic public college tomorrow, and they want to talk about a variety of things, including how they respond to Trump. And I'm like, you are not. And I'm loath to even say the name, which I won't. But my basic thing is, don't say anything. Just stay out of his sights. Right. Stay out of his crosshairs.
Right.
But these guys, Sam Harris sort of changed my life of Making Sense, the podcaster. He said, if you have economic security and people who love you unconditionally, you have an obligation to speak out.
Yeah.
Because so few people can. People have to worry about their economic livelihood. They have to, maybe, there's a lot of reasons why you may not want to be provocative as a younger person if you're not economically secure. And these guys will always say, well, it's about shareholder value. Yeah. I'm going to add a lot of value to Apple because I'm going to get this contract.
Tariffs, blah, blah, blah.
But you would think one of them would say, okay, the ass cancer's showing up pretty soon, Bezos, Cook. You're not young men. And are you going to say on your deathbed, I would think one of them would think, you know what, I'd like to be that guy that said.
I just don't. And then we're not like asking them to fall on like.
Benioff, maybe? Who's pushed back?
No, he probably wanted to go. Nobody. They're just, all they do is fellate. That's all they do now. And I'm sort of like, I got some text from someone that were like, oh, yes, we're embarrassed too. I'm like, fuck you. Like, at this point, like, why have all that money if you can't at least?
That's exactly right. What's the point?
What's the point? Is there nothing you could do? Look, of all the people, at least Elon went out on a limb for Trump. He did something, right? He thought that, however misguided you may think he is. Like, do any of them? Like, I guess Reid Hoffman does and has been pretty firm about it.
But even Reid's...
pull back.
Reid is... I think Reid is probably justifiably like worried.
He is worried. He's talking about it.
And he's trying to stay out of his crosshairs right now. But the economic opportunity is not for a tech company, but for a consumer company to just in a very thoughtful, elegant way, without even saying the president's name, run commercials talking about what an important role immigrants have played, what an important role the gay community and the transgender community have played in our Defense Department, what an important role, how rights in America and, equality and respect for institutions. I mean, you could fire up so many amazing creative agencies to have the most powerful commercials that would be very clear what you are saying. And you know what would happen? They would have a torrent of business because the bottom line is the people who are against this bullshit are mostly the only people who really matter in consumer America, and that it's educated people with disposable income.
You know, it's interesting. The only people who actually are much more public would be celebrities like Colbert or Ariana Grande when she won yesterday. I think it was the MTV Music, whatever, said, I want to thank my therapist and the gays. It was just like adorable. She's adorable. But it's really celebrities seem to be saying things, right? And not worrying about
it's comedians and celebrities, but...
Yeah, I'm just saying they're much more, I would say they're much more outspoken than they've ever been. And it's not just virtue signaling.
But here's the problem. It kind of doesn't fucking matter.
I know it doesn't. It matters that these guys do. I know. I'm just trying to think of who speaks up.
Celebrities don't sway a lot. We fall under the cold comfort of believing that America is a democracy. Okay, sort of. Because the reality is the passive populace doesn't win elections. It's organized special interest groups. And technology is now so powerful and has so much money that they can kind of sway elections and sway government. I mean, I'm increasingly about this notion that the only real means of fighting back at this point is if we can rally enough Americans to at least pick a time period and stop spending money.
Right, or stopping doing things.
Because
saying no.
It's these organized special interest groups that impact Washington and have all the power. And if we could figure out a way to get tech on our side, they could absolutely check back on Trump. If they all together met in the parking lot
and said... They didn't in 2016, Scott. They won't.
But I mean this sincerely.
I
It's like,
sincerely mean, how many times have they been in front of the fucking president and other people don't get to be? Like, how many times have we seen Mark Zuckerberg at the inauguration, Mark Zuckerberg at the White House, Mark Zuckerberg, Mar-a-Lago, Mark Zuckerberg on the stupid White House? Like, enough. You've had enough FaceTime with that fucker. So, like, what? Why didn't they have the head of Caterpillar there at least, or something, some company that matters beyond these bunch of?
but if Bob Iger just said, "Look, I've been around the block. Disney is about American values, and I'm just very uncomfortable with the idea of censorship." I think Disney Plus subscriptions would triple in 60 days.
I think he'd come under the
If
scrutiny.
Elliott Hill from Nike said, we're about winning, and part of winning is strong American institutions. We are an American company. They could do such an outstanding
Disney didn't
commercial.
make a comment after the vaccine thing in Florida. Said nothing.
Well,
Okay.
I think I think it's not only
That's
the
an
right thing
easy
to do. I think it's an enormous commercial opportunity for a consumer brand to just talk about
Crickets,
traditional
let me
American
say.
values.
Let me say crickets is what is happening. Speaking of weirdnesses, and someone who wasn't a thing, Elon Musk could become the world's first trillionaire. He's not going to. I wish we could stop saying he could, like the news reports. Under a new pay package from Tesla's board, the compensation all in Tesla stock is tied to hitting ambitious targets in the next 10 years, including getting the company's market value from where it's around just above $1 trillion to, which is a ridiculous price anyway, to $8.5 trillion, delivering a total of 20 million vehicles, which the declining sales, it's now at its lowest rates, putting 1 million robotaxis on the road, and also 1 million, I think, of those robots that don't exist, or there's just a few of them. The board is also saying that Elon needs to develop a succession framework to earn a portion of the pay. These benchmarks are just watered-down versions of promises Elon's been making for years, as TechCrunch pointed out correctly. Tesla shareholders are also set to vote on investing in XAI in an upcoming annual meeting. I mean, the whole thing. He should just mash all his companies together and hope for the best.
Look, I don't think we need trillionaires, but I don't think we should get in the way of people becoming trillionaires. I think one of the wonderful things about American capitalism is that if you take risks, you start your own companies, you invent something new, literally the upside is unlimited, and no government agency or bureaucrats is going to tell you, it's going to say to you, "Oh, you're too rich." That's fine. Have at it. I like having billionaires. I like having trillionaires. Let's talk about this specific pay package. It's saying we're going to give you options on 14% of the outstanding stock of the company. That is well outside of the range of most CEO packages. Fine. He's an exceptional individual. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. In addition, the board of Tesla, which has a compensation committee deciding the compensation package of the CEO, which, by the way, is the hardest thing on a board, I find, is compensation, is elected by the owners. We believe in private capital and we believe in private property. So the owners of a company get to decide what they're going to pay the CEO. So there's nothing, in my opinion, if I was on that comp committee, I would say, no, it's probably more like 3 to 8%, not 14%. And what it's basically saying is if he increases the value of all shareholders for $7 trillion, he gets $1 trillion commission. I don't think that is totally outrageous. Where you should be focused on is if somebody makes $1 trillion, I like where we were in the 50s, 60s, that they pay an incremental marginal tax rate of 90%. So I like the idea of full body contact capitalism that motivates people to work really hard and come up with new ideas. I just think those people need to pay a lot more taxes rather than move to Texas and end up paying, he'll end up paying about 17 or 18% if in fact he gets that money, whereas the people working in those factories are probably paying 30 or 35%.
Okay, I want you can he hit these targets? I can't imagine what can he do to get to $8.5 trillion, deliver 20 million vehicles, and put 1 million robotaxis on the road? The cars are being overwhelmed by competitors like BYD and others, by the way. There's 2 new competitors to him, I think, I can't remember who it was. There's some really beautiful cars out there. How does he do it, Scott? Whether you give it to him or not, sure, why not? I want to, Carol, if you can beat, I don't know, LeBron James, you can be in the NBA, sure. Like, I don't get it. I don't get how he gets there.
Standing here and now with BYD basically offering a Tesla, let's be kind, 80% of a Tesla, some people think it's 100 or 110% of a Tesla for 40 to 60% of the price, where his autonomous driving seems to be well behind, and all these jazz hands trying to distract people from a $1 trillion market cap company that's really probably worth somewhere between 50 and 200 billion with bullshit like robots and Mars and how he would get there, in my view, or to be clear, SpaceX has monopoly. That's, having 80% market share of space is really enticing. But if you just look at the actual numbers and what would be required to add $7 trillion in market cap, they're basically saying you're going to get $1 trillion if this becomes the most valuable company in the world by a factor of 2. It looks near impossible. I would be willing to bet a lot of money that he is never going to get $1 trillion. Having said that, Kara, I said the same thing 7 years ago, that Tesla could never be worth more than every automobile company combined.
Right,
and
but
he would
that
be able
was
to
when it
launch
was a meme
SpaceX.
stock and he was on the upswing, right?
But it happened.
Right, it did.
So he would have to do again what he has accomplished to date in terms of valuation, in terms of performance. It's remarkable. In terms of the market's response to it, it's insanely unbelievable. So could he do it? Is it likely to happen? Highly unlikely. Was it likely he was going to get to this point? Also highly unlikely. So
much less.
You think this is much
unlikely.
more aggressive than
I
even
don't
what
think.
was
I
out
think
5
he's
years ago?
old. I think he's
Right.
has some personal problems. I think he's got some health problems. I think he can't come up with a new trick. I think. Listen, everyone's like, "Oh, if anyone, he can." I'm like, "Can he now?" This is a number that's just beyond belief. It could be a meme stock. That's the only way to me it could happen. Or he merged SpaceX with this, and who cares about XAI or the other one? Maybe if he merged them all, I guess, and then pretended it was called Tesla, I suppose.
But meme stocks have generally had, other than you could argue Palantir. Is Palantir a meme stock trading at 100
little
times?
bit.
I don't know. Generally speaking, there aren't enough meme investors to
Right.
justify a multi-trillion-dollar market cap
Right.
company.
Right.
But again, it all comes back
He
to
needs a new product, is all I'm saying, and a new bit of energy in and of himself.
I don't know. Yeah, we continue to talk about him like he's a runaway teen. He's getting AARP mail.
That's what I'm saying.
I 100% agree with you. But again, I don't think we're having the right conversation. And I like the idea of a kid reading someone might be a trillionaire. I want to pay him $1 trillion, and then I want 90% of it to go to the U.S. Treasury. Because here's the thing. We're spending $7 trillion. We're taking in $5 trillion. We have to raise taxes. We have to cut spending. So let's shelve cutting spending for right now. All roads lead to entitlement cuts, by the way. But let's talk about revenues or taxes. The key is to find taxes that are the least taxing. And what Israeli-American psychologist Daniel Kahneman discovered, and he did a lot of research here, is that once you get above a certain level, no incremental happiness. If Elon Musk on that $1 trillion gets to hold on to 800 billion of it or 200 billion of it, it's going to make no difference in his life. In addition, I'm going off script here, we should eliminate the exemption on trust, because you inheriting 10 million versus 15 from Lucky, it's going to make no difference in your life.
It's not.
Okay, so the vast majority of wealth that is inherited is from a small number of people to a small number of kids. And if your kid is going to get 5 million instead of 7, no one's any less happier. So there are some when we had a society with much less income inequality and people felt much better about America, guess what? The incremental tax rates on people making so much fucking money they couldn't spend it all were much higher. Anyway, I'm ranting. Lower taxes on everyone up to $1 million and above $1 million. Oh my God, you want progressive all caps tax structure, and no one is any less happy.
They looked so miserable at that dinner, plus they didn't get to go onto the new patio, the new rose garden. It looks like such a cheap version of a Marriott. It looks like a Marriott, like a medium level Marriott.
They're prostitutes with a half bottle.
Did you see that? What do you think of the Rose Garden Club?
They're prostitutes with a half bottle of cheap Jack, of cheap bourbon drink, condoms hanging out of their ass, and the pimp has just said, "You've got another 11 Johns tonight."
Oh my God!
They look exhausted, abused, tired, and humiliated. They're like, "How did I end up here?" First off, eliminate. I hate to say it. Eliminate ICE just symbolically. Absolutely. Department of Defense. There are so many.
Yeah.
Whoever the new president is, assuming he's not Vance,
He's
is
going
going
to
to
spend all
have
his time cleaning up.
is
That's all.
literally going to
That's what
be the
Democrats
circus
do.
clown behind an elephant just scooping
Yep.
up shit for the first
For
3 or
the
6
first
months.
3 or 6 months. I agree. All right, let's go on a quick break. And when we come back, RFK Jr. continues to create chaos. What a fucking mess. Scott, we're back. President Trump has mixed reactions to RFK Jr.'s heated appearance at the Senate Finance Committee last week. Let's listen to a clip from the hearing.
Do you accept the fact that 1 million Americans died from COVID?
I don't know how many died.
You're the Secretary of Health and Human Services. You don't have any idea how many Americans died from COVID?
I don't think anybody knows that because there was so much data chaos coming out of the CDC.
Oh, my God. His voice just driving me crazy. That was Senator Warner. In response, Trump said of the vaccines are, quote, pure and simple, they work, but also defended RFK Jr., saying he's a different type of guy. And he's not the only one. Several Republican senators, including Bill Cassidy and Tom Tillis, expressed concern during Kennedy's hearing. Meanwhile, RFK Jr. reportedly plans to announce that pregnant women's use of Tylenol is potentially linked to autism. He has no proof of much of this. And in fact, it's the same thing with the Florida Surgeon General said he didn't use any science when it came to deciding on the vaccines. Conservative polling from his reported warning GOP lawmakers that only 75% of Trump voters believe vaccines save lives. Thoughts?
Second most dangerous person in the administration is Peter Navarro, who will substantially reduce our prosperity. Most dangerous person is RFK because when he gets up in front of Congress and lies and says, I'm not anti-vaccine and anyone can get a vaccine. No, when you now say that it has to be under prescription or from a doctor's orders, you're going to reduce the penetration of vaccines 1/3 to 2/3, and you're going to increase disease by much more than that because you'll have a bunch of kids in 3rd grade that have measles or rubella. This is arguably, if this guy gains more traction and the CDC continues to be emasculated and this anti-vaccine conspiracy bullshit continues to gain traction and people are confused, even if they believe it or not.
It is gaining traction, by the way.
If you don't make it easy for people to get vaccines, fewer people are going to get vaccines and more kids are going to have their limbs cut off from advanced measles. This is just, it's one thing. Europe has not prospered because they haven't grown, but they make good decisions. They're generally a smart people. We are growing, and yet we've decided
it's suicide.
How do we take a giant step back? This is insane. I do have to be honest, though. I was really proud. That was Senator Warner. He's fantastic. I wish he would run for president. I thought Senator Bennett was good. I thought Senator Elizabeth Warren was really good. Senator Cantwell. I also thought Senator Cassidy was actually quite deft.
I know, but he had to win because he had been the one that wasn't going to vote for him, and he would have been the deciding one. And then he did. He got pressured from Trump.
They all claim to have concerns, and then they all vote.
That's what I mean. That's all I'm saying. I'm not going to give Cassidy.
But he did say
he was good.
He did say, "Look, you told me that you were going to support vaccines, and you don't seem to be doing this." So I thought let me put it this way, he's done a whole hell of a lot more. But if you want to talk about a lasting legacy of death, disease, and disability, this is Bobby Kennedy. And also to the president's credit, he did say in a presser after that, I think some vaccines are good. I mean,
except he doesn't get rid of him. It doesn't matter. Again, it's like Cassie. I don't care.
Well, have you heard this Florida Surgeon General equating vaccine mandates with slavery?
He is so stupid. He's so stupid. And then was asked about the science, and he goes, I didn't use science. I just think parents should be able to. I think really interestingly, like someone had a question online, and my brother, the doctor, answered, like, if you get a vaccine, what do you care if they do? Like, it's a public health issue. There are immunocompromised people who can't get vaccines, for one. Secondly, if you make them hard to get and more expensive, insurance, if the CDC doesn't back them, insurance companies don't pay for them, and therefore poor people don't get them. People with money can get them, as always, but people who don't have means can't get them. And then lastly, it's a public health danger because also little babies don't get vaccines for, a year and a half, 2 years? I have so many children, I don't remember, but there's a period of time when babies, that's why when you go to like any cemetery before we had vaccines, you see so many baby graves, right? Because they died of all kinds of diseases we have eradicated, and now it's back. it's just there's so many reasons to do it that will protect everybody, but it's such a typical Trump thing.
I feel as if, quote unquote, the worm has turned against RFK Jr.
Yes, seems like it, but he's
Do you
still there. Trump doesn't
So
let
you think
people
he's
go. Trump doesn't. He doesn't want to admit he was wrong. I think that's a bigger
Right.
issue. I think
Do you think his job is safe?
I think it would take a lot for him to get. He's done a lot, and I think a lot. I don't know. I just think Trump just sticks to his guns. He doesn't. I don't think Trump cares. I think he's an old man, and he was always a selfish prick, and he's going to remain a selfish prick the day he dies. That's all. Doesn't care. Doesn't care about public health. Doesn't care about people, poor people. Doesn't care about I don't think he thinks about one day in his life. He thinks about whether people booing for him or cheering at the U.S. Open. By the way, they were booing mostly. Anyway, let's move on. Last thing, Anthropic has agreed to this is a really interesting case. I really want to know what you think about this. $1.5 billion settlement with a group of authors and publishers. That's after a judge ruled the company illegally acquired millions of copyrighted books. They nicked them, as they say. The settlement, $3,000 per work for about 500,000 authors, is the largest payout in the history of U.S. copyright cases. By settling, Anthropic avoids a trial that could have carried damages in the hundreds of billions. Also, I bet there were some nice emails around. All of this comes as Anthropic just closed a $13 billion funding round, tripling its valuation to $183 billion. What do you think this means for other AI companies? I just love your thoughts on this because, they definitely there was probably a lot of stuff, would be my guess. And they thought, let's get this out of our way. We just got this funding. We can just fork over this money as part of it. It goes away.
I think you have a better grasp of IP and journalism books. I want you to take this, and I'll comment
Okay.
on it.
I may have been in this group. I didn't do anything, but I have found my books stolen by these people, and they maybe they
me
paid
too.
for one copy. I guess I suppose that's what they did, or something like that.
Oh no, they don't have to buy it,
Right? Exactly.
or maybe they buy the audit. Or yeah, maybe they do. You're right. Maybe they have to buy one.
copy,
Yeah.
right? It's so ridiculous, the kind of stuff they're stealing, and to me, if we have these U.S. copyright cases, copyright should matter here, just like it did YouTube back in the day. YouTube figured it out and ended up paying people, and it's turned out to be a great business. You don't talk about YouTube stealing, but you did forever. Why would you build your business on stealing other people's content and then remaking it and putting, these people worked on these things. They deserve to be paid. If you don't, you're a shoplifter. That's the only thing I can think of. And I suspect they settled because I'll bet there was emails. I bet there was some proof of what they did, and they would have been on the hook this would have been over for this company had it gone to trial, would be my guess, probably.
Yeah, the incumbents benefit from the illusion of complexity, like what's crawling, what's actual IP infringement, what isn't. No, it's pretty simple. This industry needs to adopt some sort of similar construct to what musicians do, and that is if you're KROQ in Los Angeles and you're playing the B-52s, and every year they say, okay, you can run, it's very seamless, you just track it, you played B-52 songs 1,100 times, you have to send Warner Brothers or whoever is the publisher of the B-52s, you have to send them $1,100 to a rights management group. The rights management group then sends out checks to everyone from Madonna to Luke Combs, and that's how they make money. And they say, okay, we have an infrastructure that's seamless, frictionless. People can use our content, but we get paid for it. These guys have plenty of money to pay for these rights. All they need is a tracking mechanism that says, okay, Kara's books informed us on this many queries, so she gets X amount of money, and we send it to a rights group who then distributes the IP, distributes the payments. This is a system they could easily prop up, but instead they pretend it's too difficult because they'd rather just steal it. So I like this because it sets a precedent that these companies have committed IP theft. That's what it says. It says that they have taken something that has economic value and they owe these authors. The next step that I think is really what we really need is, again, what I wanted the New York Times to do is I wanted us all to get together and bind together as one group and then negotiate Microsoft against Google to see who got to crawl our stuff and who didn't. Because the biggest mistake we made back then was to just let them crawl it, thinking it was going to send us more traffic and we'd serve them banner ads, and that just didn't work. So this is a moment in time. I think this is a step in the right direction, but I still think we got to get to a point where it's like, okay, when your book comes out, when your TV show comes out, when your podcast comes out, we have a means of tracking what percentage of it in terms of nuance and context or direct data or direct quotes from this book have been used across all of our queries. And we're going to give you a certain percentage of our profits, and we're going to figure out a mechanism for figuring out who gets what. It's just, these guys could figure it out with a bunch of economists. And what we don't have is on our side, we don't have strong representation. We don't have someone, I mean, you know our idea. We wanted Barry Diller to do this, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
To get everyone from Penguin Portfolio Random House to Disney to Condé Nast to Hearst to Dow Jones, and then basically say, all right, it's a bidding war, and whoever gives us the biggest slice of their pie gets access to this data. And maybe it's both. Maybe we do it for both, for everybody, Anthropic, Llama. But there's enough money here to go around.
It's theft. Let me just say, I just went to Amazon, right? Remember I complained when my book came out that they were ripping it off? So the first thing that results when you do Kara Swisher is my burn book. And then my book, There Must Be a Pony in Here Somewhere. And before that, AOL.com. Those are all Kara Swisher books. Then, right away, Kara Swisher, the fierce voice of tech, speaking up, asking questions, and making a difference. Like as if I wrote it, like, and it's by some fake name. And then there's Kara Swisher, Tech's Queen Bee with Sting. And then there's Kara Swisher, Navigating the Digital Era, Insights and Perspectives from a trailblazing journalist. I cooperated on none of it by someone named Scott P. Mundy. That's all AI. They're thieves is what they are. They're thieving my stuff. And I paid for it with my time and my money, and I should get all the money related to my stuff. And same thing with
happens?
You. Let me look up Scott Galloway now.
Well, they're going to start crawling our podcasts, and they'll be able to say, put out a pivot-like context, same voices, same feel, same banter, same dick jokes, but cover
Not
business.
the same dick jokes,
but cover business in Turkey, and they'll be able to spin it up. And I'm actually down with that as long as we get paid for it.
Well, except for a Scott Galloway biography, honest reflections on being a real man and dad in an uncertain, ever-changing world. A new 2025 memoir from you. I don't know if you know that. It looks like that's yours. Then, okay, biography of Scott Galloway, including exercises for notes on being a man. They've already making an exercise book for you. The Algebra of Wealth workbook, fix in Scott Galloway's teachings into your mind. Isu McDonald wrote that, whoever the fuck that is. Scott Galloway, The Untold Story. Oh, I'm going to get that one. The Untold Story of Scott Galloway. It's just...
There's nothing that hasn't been told.
I mean, seriously, fuck you. Like,
this is Amazon?
Amazon. That's just Amazon. All right, we're going to move on. We're mad as hell, and we're not going to take it anymore. That's what I say.
Behind the music. I just need a heroin habit. I want to hook up with a former supermodel
and see what it's unread from it. All right, Scott, one more quick break. We'll be back for wins and fails. Okay, Scott, I guess I'll start with wins and fails. I think, the fail, you got to read this story in the New York Times about J.P. Morgan enabling the crimes of Jeffrey Epstein. It's an investigation. It's astonishing how much they were warned about all this money. They ignored red flags, suspicious activity. Executives were concerned, and they continued to let Jeffrey Epstein use their bank to do his defense. And they kind of knew it. And so I just think that kind of enabling, I'm sort of in an enabling point of view right now, especially with those tech assholes sucking Trump's dick, as you say. And my win is E. Jean Carroll's an appeals court upheld her $83 million judgment against Trump. She'll probably get the 5. The $83 million is a different story. But they're going to ask to go to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court has been very Trumpy lately. It just allowed ICE to make indiscriminate stops in L.A. temporarily, at least, upturning another federal judge's order not to do that. So it's got to go to, they're going to ask the second. I was talking to the lawyer for Eugene Carroll, Roberta Kaplan, and she said they'll ask this entire Second Circuit to reconsider, and then what? They'll ask the Supreme Court to decide this. I think he'll probably have to pay at least part of the money to her, and she deserves it. And I think that's great. I hope he has to pay at least someone for his behavior at some point. And then the last very quick things, I don't know, Scott, there's actually really also another great story in the New York Times about how your zodiac sign is 2,000 years out of date. Do you know that? I'm not a Sagittarius. I'm a Let me tell you what I am. It's another thing called there's an Earth wobble that our Earth has moved, and the zodiac signs are very out of date. And I'd have to put your birthday. Will you say your birthday publicly? I think you know, right?
It's November the 3rd.
Okay, I'll look
Election
it up.
day.
Oh, okay. So mine is now this thing called, hold on, Ophiuchus. I'm an Ophiuchus. It's the 13th
Yeah, but what said that
constellation.
about you?
Ophiuchus means serpent bearer in ancient Greece. That's me.
Hmm.
So I'm not Sagittarius. I'm Ophiuchus, which is the 13th constellation. They just decided to do 12 because of the month. All right, I'm going to put yours in while you tell yours, and I'll tell you what your actual zodiac sign is.
I actually have 2 wins, and I'm hoping that our team can pull together a mashup. But I thought the senators I think it's the Senate Finance Committee where RFK,
Yeah, finance.
oddly enough, testified. People are very cynical about our elected officials. I think Senators Cassidy, Warren, Cantwell, Bennett, Warner, Sanders, I thought they were outstanding. And they were not taking prisoners. This is a serious issue. And we elect these people to prevent a tragedy that comes and think long term. And there's nothing that can better prevent a tragedy that comes and is more long term than vaccines. And these guys, in my view, they just brought it. I thought they were outstanding.
Yeah.
And also,
They did their
it was
job.
clear that Senate offices continue to attract incredibly impressive staff and aides because these guys came ready to play. Their facts were on point. They had charts. I mean, it's the team of the best players wins, but I thought there were really talented people behind the scenes pulling together this data for our outstanding elected leaders. So that was my win. My other win was I was thinking about it's about to be, what is it, the 24-year anniversary of September the 11th. And I just want to reflect on that for a minute. I was in New York when it happened, and my ex called me. We had split up about a year before, but we were still good friends. She called me and said, "Can you come over?" And I said, "Sure." She said, the World Trade Center's on fire. And we went over and it was on fire. She had a huge deck overlooking the World Trade Center about a mile north of it. And then we saw a second plane disappear behind the second tower and come out the other end. And right then we knew it was a terrorist attack. And the flood of people coming up 6th Avenue. And I remember the radio, they came over the radio and said there's 23 planes that are unaccounted for. I remember thinking, like, am I in a building that's too tall? Should I get down to the ground? And for the next several days, 2 things struck out. It was the quietest Manhattan has ever been. No honking. Occasionally you'd see someone on the street on the cell phone crying. But other than that, no one was talking. No one was saying anything. It was very strange. No, it was like we were out and appropriately, it was as if the city was in mourning. The thing that really struck me, and I will remember for a long time and serves as sort of marks the event, was I went to Union Square to that memorial, and there was this tiny couple. They must have been like 4'10", in very cheap clothing, Ukrainian. They were passing out flyers similar to the flyers you get when someone has lost their dog, and it was a picture of this, of course, this beautiful young man who was a waiter at the Windows of the World, and they thought they might find him. They were out walking around trying to find their son, right? Very upsetting. And then the reason I bring it up as a win is that it really did show that our reach is far and our memory is long. If you think about the hunt for Osama bin Laden, it started in the 90s with criminal charges, and we had some early setbacks, including bin Laden's escape from Tora Bora in 2001, and then with some key intelligence breakthroughs and some intelligence officers that would not give up, we tracked a courier to Abbottabad, and then it culminated in this incredible SEAL raid in May of 2011, which ended in bin Laden's death. And in addition, this left a treasure trove of intelligence files and spurred critical retrospection on foreign and domestic intelligence operations. And I take huge pride in our security apparatus, our Defense Department, our incredible special ops. I love the idea that the last thought that ran through this guy's head before we put a bullet in his eyes is that we had found him. And it was also, I would argue, the last time America really felt like it was unified. And it was just such an incredible demonstration of persistence, resilience, our intelligence apparatus, our bravery. And I love my favorite visual memorial in history is each year they light up two beams into the sky, right where the Twin Towers were. But there were just so many people who came together to, I would like to think, give some semblance of closure to the people who lost people, and to demonstrate that America, again, our reach is far and our memory is long. But I just wanted to comment on the 24-year anniversary of September 11th. If you were in New York, it really stands out as a big moment.
Do you know where Amanda was? Underneath the towers. She was in a subway going down there.
Oh, really? Did she know what was going on?
No, the subway stopped and filled with smoke. She thought she was going to die and didn't know what. Nobody knew, and they managed to get them out and get up in the street and far enough away that it didn't before it fell and stuff like that. So one of them fell. And
one of the strange things about 9/11 was,
I'm sure,
they had that hospital and they fired it up and said, "Get ready." And the thing was, you either died or you got off scot-free. There were actually very few injuries.
Yep.
But we lost something like 350 firefighters, lost about 3,000 people,
and from the cleanup. Yeah.
And another 4,500 people have died from
cleanup.
From 9/11 related illnesses.
Right, and who knows who was down there who would actually, anyway.
But my emotionally manipulative moment is, if you really want to feel emotional, go listen to the calls from the people on the planes who knew that that was it. All of them. None of them called to say, "Take care of my affairs," or "There's money in the banana stand,"
stock.
Or I never told you how much I'm pissed off. They all said the same thing. "I'm just calling to say I love you."
Yep.
Really gripping. Really gripping. Anyways.
Good one, Scott Galloway.
Our fine public servants, our elected senators, I thought did an outstanding job of that hearing.
Yep.
And it has been 24 years that, unfortunately, because of tragedy, I felt like we were a nation. But I think the nation really did pull together and demonstrate a great deal of excellence post 9/11.
And let's guess who was the one person who told lies about it and said he was there and said fake things about people of descent from Muslims. One person said terrible things, and he's the president of the United States. I'm not going to, but anyway.
Oh, this is when he said they're celebrating New Jersey.
And also that he was down there, all this stuff. Anyway, we've got to finish up, but just so you know, Scott, you're a Libra, not a Scorpio.
Really? I like being a Scorpio. It means I'm an asshole, but I'm interesting.
You're now a Libra. So just remember, you're a Libra, my friend. You go look. I'll send you the link. You're a Libra. Sorry, you're going to have to rethink your whole life. Anyway, I'm an I can't even pronounce it. I'm the 13th constellation.
I think I have a sweater made from the hide of that.
Anyway, we want to hear from you. Send us your questions about business, tech, or whatever's on your mind. Go to nymag.com/pivot to submit a question for the show or call 855-51-PIVOT. Elsewhere in the Karen Scott universe, this week I spoke with historian, New Yorker staff writer, and Harvard University professor Jill Lepore about her new book, We the People. It's a giant book about the history of the Constitution. Let's listen to a clip.
Trump and Trumpism are also a product of a world where the Constitution became unamendable. I mean, after the ERA, the amendment that Americans most seriously considered in the 70s and 80s was the Balanced Budget Amendment, which had, like ERA, about 80% popular approval, like, say, around 1979 or so. There's just a lot of people who were really worried about federal government spending. So that essentially constitutional frustration of a large segment of the American public, I think Trump tapped into that.
Yes, the unamendable Constitution. We had some good ones, but not now. Okay, it's worth listening to. Okay, that's the show. Thanks for listening to Pivot, and be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll be back on Friday. Scott, read us out.
Today's show was produced by Lara Naaman, Zoë Marcus, Taylor Griffin, and Kate Gallagher. Ernie Indradat engineered this episode. Jim Mackil edited the video. Thanks also to Drew Bros, Miss Severo, and Dan Shalon. Nishat Kurwa is Vox Media's executive producer podcast. Make sure to follow Pivot on your favorite podcast platform. Thanks for listening to Pivot from New York Magazine and Vox Media. You can subscribe to the magazine at nymag.com/pod. We'll be back later this week for another breakdown of all things tech and business. Kara, have a great rest of the week.